Hey everybody, we're live at Rackspace, the #1 managed cloud company. My name is Alan Bush, and we're here with our co-host Drew Cox.
Hello, hello.
This is Office Hours. It's our weekly live show about the cloud and cloud technology. And today we are doing one of my favorite shows. I've done this for the past 2 or 3 years now, and this is our opportunity to bring in our CTO from Rackspace, John Ingates.
Hey everybody, look at that. I hit the microphone right off the bat.
We should have been talking about it before we went live.
I know. All right.
Break the ice,
Yeah,
break
there we
the
go.
ice.
There we go. Break the mic. And, no. So we've had you on the last 2 or 3 years, and you're one of our frequent guests, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And especially this time of year because you write your annual cloud predictions.
We do. Every year we sort of look forward and try to figure out what's going to happen in the next year, and we put it in a blog post and share it with the world.
Yeah, it's really one of my favorite things. For the past few years, you've been pretty spot on, and I've looked back and we kind of look back at them and taking a look at them, and they look pretty good. But this year you've got a whole bunch of new ones coming up, and we're going to talk about them today.
Sure, absolutely. Excited to get started.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. It's, again, one of my favorite things. So there's a lot of predictions. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, so I want to jump right into it.
Sure.
Let's start off by going through 2016 and see if there's anything that really stuck out to you from 2016 before we jump into the ones for this year.
Well, you put me on the spot because I'm thinking about the next year already.
It's good to be looking forward.
No, I think some of the things in 2016 that I was excited about, things like VR and augmented reality, some of the features of self-driving cars that started to emerge with Tesla and others. The cloud. We talk a lot about cloud, so this is primarily what we do here at Rackspace, but cloud competition, we started to see that continue to grow. Not so much focused on the price of cloud as much as the features, the capabilities. I think that was part of my prediction, and that pretty much came true. You sort of stopped worrying about who was a penny cheaper, but you started to think about what cloud or what technology set met the needs of my application and my business. I think security has been a topic that we've talked about for a long time. It continues to be one. I've got a few new thoughts on it, but security got a lot rougher for us all, across the industry, personally and professionally. So we'll dig into that as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can definitely go back and check those out. They're still on the Rackspace blog at blog.rackspace.com. Just search 2016 predictions and you'll get them.
You can actually find the link at the bottom of the 2017, or there's even a hyperlink within the blog itself.
Yeah,
so if you find the one we're going to be covering today, you'll be able to use that as a reference to jump to the rest of them.
Absolutely. And we'll put a little link here in YouTube and make it out there. But let's go ahead and jump right into the 2017 predictions, and they kind of followed your very first prediction really followed on the heels of one that you made in 2016, which was a multi-cloud world.
Yeah, and I think that's continuing to be true. And actually, in terms of what I'm hearing from customers and people in the industry, it's accelerating. The multi-cloud, when I say that, what I really mean is that consumers, businesses or developers, whoever's consuming cloud, is more and more likely to be consuming more than one cloud. We saw a survey last year that said the average company was consuming 6 clouds, the average of 6, which is crazy. But that cuts across public cloud and SaaS and maybe platform as a service type clouds, possibly even private cloud. But that seems to be accelerating because of the nature of the competition between the big cloud providers. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, others in the industry, Rackspace with the private cloud offering and our own public cloud, OpenStack really driving on the private cloud side. All of those are bringing so many options to the table that companies now have a variety of capabilities they can choose from. It's like a palette. It's an artist choosing a cloud capability from this palette of service offerings and weaving them together into a comprehensive application and not being beholden to any one particular cloud or technology set. I think developers are curious people. I think engineers and architects love to try new things out. Oftentimes that's how multiple clouds make their way into the organization. Sometimes maybe it's a business unit or a marketing team or somebody going off on their own and doing something innovative. And by accident, a company ends up with 2 or 3 or 4 cloud relationships.
Right.
And that's just a reality today that we're going to have to live with. But the challenge, the reason I put it in this blog post for the year is because it's creating new challenges for companies as well, being the complexity of managing all of that, having the experience and the expertise on staff, on hand, and keeping those people around because they've all got really strong job options out there in the market.
They do.
Well, there's a governance component to that too.
Absolutely.
You've got the complexity of, oh, I didn't even know we had that cloud. Now we have to understand its implications to our business,
Right.
and either integrate it or deprecate it so that we can move forward, making the most sense. But you've also got, like you mentioned, this big palette of, well, we need to be in a specific geo. What offerings are there that can get us as close as possible to that geo, or
Right.
what technology is out there? And so to take the most value from those various relationships, it takes understanding, and having a clear view of where the value can come from is a really big piece of that conversation. And being able to govern it all well so that it fits within your business requirements is going to be, I think, one of the headaches that comes along with that multi-cloud world that I think solutions are going to start cropping up.
I mean,
more and more.
it's great to have all these choices, but it's also, the what do they call it, a double-edged sword, or it's the problem as well. I mean, you've got the benefits, but you've got all the negative aspects that go with it, of keeping up with all of these cloud providers and what features they're launching, and which services are mature, which ones are ready
Right.
for prime time. And if you build up a bench of experts on your team, do you have somebody who knows these things in depth, or are they just sort of tinkering around with them enough to be basic, familiar level expert? And I think ultimately, as you build your business on top of these services, you want really strong expertise. You want somebody who's done it before.
Yeah.
And that's really where we're putting our focus for 2017, is helping companies make their way into the cloud and make their way across multiple clouds and take advantage of these capabilities without the risk or the cost or the pain that goes along with it. We want to be that safety net behind the scenes and really help companies adopt these technologies as fast as possible.
Yeah, I like that we're able to facilitate getting all the right people at the table,
Yeah.
all the right expertise at the table, because you may have a couple of experts within the business that could do it, but are they on the same page? And do you have those experts with the depth of expertise on things they're not currently using? So if we can bring our expertise in and have that collaborative discussion between the developer groups and all the other people who are important to that decision, it really can amplify the value that a customer can get from all
Absolutely.
that stuff.
Having one team of people that understand the entire business. If you're talking to 5 different vendors and you have 5 different points of contact, they're not going to get the same picture as having one point of contact.
The real challenge that I see a lot of folks struggling with is just keeping up with the pace of innovation. I mean, we're talking all about futuristic things here, but every one of these companies have a roadmap that is aggressive. Everyone's building as fast as they can. They're building out new services and capabilities. They're doing it across, like you said, lots of geographies, lots of different form factors of technology to be consumed. And it's just hard to keep up with that pace.
Yeah.
If you're not focused on it 100% every day, walking into work thinking, what's new? What do I have to think about? Your app can kind of stagnate. One of the things that we've seen some companies struggle with is they get migrated to a cloud, pick your favorite one, and they get migrated by a professional services organization. And then it becomes this sort of thing stuck in time. It's like an artifact of 2 or 3 years ago, right? And you see that they built it in a certain way because at the time that was the right way to do it. That was the right technology, set or stack to take advantage of. But the world moves on, and then now you're not really taking advantage of the new stuff, and you're stuck on an older sort of model or architecture. And that's also what we're trying to solve for companies, is helping them stay current by bringing them along with us on this cloud journey and across these multiple clouds. So that's why I put it on the list. It's something that we're spending a lot of time on. I know it's a challenge for CIOs. They're telling me this every day. I know the cloud providers are also thinking a lot about this. How can they enable this? But ultimately, this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of cloud adoption.
Yeah, that threat for disruption is always kind of looming in the back of the mind of someone who's an established entity in an ecosystem. And so when you have this 2 or 3 or 4-year-old approach, you are increasingly susceptible to that.
That's right.
Disruption.
Well, one thing, with the multi-cloud, you mentioned that there are additional challenges that are brought on top of that. And I think one of those things is security, and that was ironically enough the next item on your list for predictions. So let's talk a little bit about security.
Security was a big one for me as well. Number one, personally, I got hit by some cyber criminals, whatever you want to call them. I got somebody opened a credit card in my name last year. Somebody filed taxes for me so that they could hopefully get my refund last year.
Okay.
So a couple of things hit me personally. I started thinking a lot about security last year on a personal level, but as a business, I think every CIO, every business leader is thinking about security because it's impacting them and their bottom line. When they have a breach, when they have a any kind of an event that's security related, it erodes confidence on the part of their customers, even their own employees in some cases. When things get breached and all their data gets HR data maybe gets leaked out on the web, your own employees may lose a little trust. And it costs companies a tremendous amount of money. And this last year, we saw some very large scale security problems. The DOS attack that came near the end of the year that was targeted
DNS.
DNS took down lots of companies because the backbone of your internet presence is DNS.
Right. Yeah, if you don't have DNS, it's
you're down.
memorizing.
Anyway.
And so Dyn, the company that was targeted, had a hard time during those a couple of days because they were flooded with traffic. And I think my prediction was that this problem is going to get worse before it gets better. Ultimately, I think from on a personal level and on a business level, we're going to see security events rise. The threats are going to get more sophisticated. The bad guys are always persistent, and they're going to get more emboldened because they're succeeding, right? And one guy is a copycat of another guy, sees that you can make some money going out and starting up a botnet and hire out your services to the highest bidder, and all of a sudden, we've got real problem on our hands with security. One of the researchers said that they believe last year was a year where they were testing security to see where the boundaries were of when DNS falls over or when a DOS attack has the ability to really seriously take down. So if they're just testing in 2016, what does it look like for us in 2017?
Well, a lot of these are just a lack of importance of security at the time that some of these devices and products and things were created. And I think that if nothing else, last year taught us that security is very important. And your company needs to build with security in mind.
Yeah.
We look at these devices that are created without the ability to change the firmware, which means that their hard-coded passwords are in there and they're known to the world.
Right.
And so I really hope that it's been a good lesson to people. So that going forward, these physical devices, these internet-connected machines are going to become more secure, and that it will be top of mind for everybody.
One of the things that we attached to the blog this year was a list of some of my personal recommendations. I think it's attached. But one of them was don't buy gear from companies that are fly by night Chinese.
Right.
Nobody knows the name of the company who actually makes it. Buy your connected devices from somebody who you feel like may have a future and will update these things and will keep them current. And if you're not able to keep them current, get rid of them. Take them off the network. Disconnect them, because all you're doing is you're putting your own network at risk. You're putting the internet at risk. It's hard to really think about that on an individual level, but every individual device adds up to this DOS attack that we saw last year that really has big implications for really the internet as a whole. So I do think security is critical. Back to the topic we just talked about, multi-cloud security, I think, is going to be something that you're going to start to hear a lot about, because that is the new challenge when you think about applying security across multiple clouds. How do you do it consistently? How do you have a view of what's going on in these different places? Every one of these clouds on the market approaches security a little bit differently. Some of them have their own way of doing firewalls or their own way of doing network architecture. And now the challenge on a company is, how do I apply security consistently and effectively in multiple locations? How do I keep track of what's going on where, and do I have the expertise to do that as well?
Yeah, some of the value of having multiple platforms is that you're subdividing your network out a little bit, your solution, so that if one piece gets compromised, it's not the rest of it, which is one of those concepts that's really gained momentum over the last couple of years of focus on security. But it's an arms race. There's going to always be bad actors looking to find new exploits, and there's always going to be people discovering new exploits that are being used and trying to find ways to protect against them. And so
security is a full-time job. I mean, there is no way to do security well if it's just a piece of your job. If it's something you spend, an hour on a day and only do it once or twice a week, when you think about it, that's a problem. Your security at this stage, due to the persistence of the bad guys and the level of sophistication, security is now something that has risen to a level where you need to be thinking about it kind of on a full-time basis, and have people, watching your security on a full-time basis as well.
Absolutely.
I think the next item that you had up on the agenda was serverless architecture. And this is something we've started talking about a little bit this last year, actually in 2016. And I think it's going to be a really interesting way for people to build services and build little small applications that don't need that server power.
Yeah, so serverless is interesting. I mean, the name is a little deceiving because technically there are servers behind the scenes of every cloud service that you might consume. But the idea behind serverless is that you shouldn't necessarily have to be a system administrator of a Linux machine to get a service up and running. If you just need something to check in every once in a while, or collect a piece of data every once in a while, or fire off a tweet from in response to some sort of event, why do you need all this heavy infrastructure with load balancing, and why do you need to put all that together just to get that one little bit of functionality? So what cloud providers have started to do, AWS is by far the leader here because they've jumped out ahead, but everybody's thinking about how to make these services available. But they've basically launched a service that they call Lambda, which allows companies to build little micro applications on top and have these things spin up only when you need them, and you don't pay for them until you use them. They are very low resource requirements. They don't cost a lot, and in a way it really takes a lot of burden off of the administrator or the developer of the application. Some of our own teams here behind the scenes have really embraced Lambda and serverless architecture. Some of them say they never want to go back to the old way of doing things. That's crazy that it's gone that far that fast. But this sort of supplants some of the container conversations that we might have had last year. Containers was on my 2016, and we know that that really blew up in a big way with Docker and Kubernetes and others. And that we'll see that continue. But this is just yet another tool in the arsenal for a developer and architect to build a really capable application with a much lower overhead in terms of their time and their energy.
Yeah, if you can achieve the same thing with fewer requirements, that's always going to be valuable. It's always going to be more efficient. And so I know that if I could get the same outcome and not have the maintenance and upkeep and management and patching and all that stuff to do with a piece of hardware or just a virtual machine, I would be happy to offload that to something that could just run when I need it. I'm billed only when it's used. And I get so granular with what I'm doing that a lot of the day-to-day work that the operational groups have to do goes away in those cases where they can focus on really optimizing the other components.
Yeah. And, I think this is the year to start paying attention to it. Last year, we saw companies get their feet wet with it. Amazon at their reInvent conference in late November, put a big focus on it with Lambda and other technologies that sort of complement it. They're even, sort of pushing some of these capabilities out into physical devices that might reside on a customer premises. There might be something you want to build. For example, I think they have a way to get a little bit of computing power in a product they call Snowball, which is their on-premises storage capability. And serverless certainly plays a role in all of that as well, because now you can push computing into places that might not have otherwise hosted a full VM or a full stack.
Well, that was one of the things they mentioned at reInvent, was that this now they can put those into devices.
Embed some of this technology. Yes. And we're going to see a lot of crossover when you think about this whole list. Everything here, it all touches one another. It's hard to actually tease this apart because a lot of what we're talking about is foundational level stuff that other things get built on top of or integrated into.
Yeah, if we slice this up as a little playlist, you can jump in anywhere you want. And
That's right. Rewind, fast forward, whatever you want to do.
It'll all be there. It's really interesting. the way that you're able to break these apart and not use servers anymore. And like you mentioned, I mean, everything is all connected. And one of the things that we've seen a little bit is at least a slowdown, if not the end of Moore's law.
Yeah. Do you know what Moore's law is? Everybody know what that is?
It's the doubling of compute, but let's give the full.
Ultimately, you're right. It's the doubling of compute power approximately every 18 months to 2 years. You know, for the history of computing, we've seen that sort of trajectory where you could draw a line from where the first 8086 processor all the way to today's, fastest server processors. And what you saw is this sort of steady increase in the number of transistors on a die and the amount of processing power that was available in that machine. But that has slowed down. The curve has sort of flattened out. It's not quite the same slope as it once had. You're seeing new computers come out that have a lot of whiz-bang stuff, but the processing power isn't that much more than the previous generation. I'm watching what's coming out at CES and other events, and you're just not seeing the level of increase that we once did. And what that means is that idea of Moore's law, which isn't truly a law of physics, it's just a prediction that Gordon Moore made years and years ago. It's sort of flattening out and coming to an end. And what that means is that architects, designers, application builders are looking for ways to get performance back and lower the cost of building their application and running their application. How do we do that? How do we get creative about where we find new capabilities? And one of the things that we've seen lately is GPUs. GPUs used to be graphics processors, and now they're becoming more general purpose. They call them GPUs, right? they're general purpose graphics processor units. And they're basically being used in ways to enable very sophisticated computing. And it's bringing back some of the performance that we were losing on a general purpose processor. And that's what I meant by the end of Moore's law. It's not that we're going to fundamentally stop getting more performance or lower cost performance. It's just that we're going to have to get creative about the ways that we do it. And you're seeing the cloud providers really help us with that.
Well, having quickly accessible resources has traditionally, over the last, 5, 6, 7 years, been really easy for a customer who's saying, I just need more performance, I'm going to throw more horsepower at it. It's been really affordable to go about it with that Band-Aid approach of, we'll just give it more horsepower and we'll be fine. And with those changing landscapes and it being more and more difficult to just, upgrade the processor or replace the machine with something latest and greatest, you're going to have to look back at, okay, how do we more efficiently build this? And how have we approached the code? And how can we be better on that end? And so you can give us a solution, more horsepower, or you can ask it to do less. Those are really the only two levers from a really high level that you have to get more out of your end result. And so I think the pressure is going to start moving more towards developers to do a better and better job of efficiently approaching what they're building.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's been actually a part of the realization that developers come to when they start to move to the cloud is they can no longer just get a bigger machine or get a bigger CPU. It used to be that was the way you scaled your database. Remember the early days of MySQL or SQL Server, if you needed more performance, just get a bigger box, put more CPUs in it, get some more RAM, maybe some faster disks, and that was the way to go. But the cloud has sort of forced us to start thinking horizontally about our scale. And that's ultimately also another trick to get around this, Moore's law problem is just figure out how to scale across machines rather than just expect a bigger one to come next year.
Well, and explaining that to people was the reason that I was brought here to Rackspace was to help.
So this is an old.
This is old hat for me. Well, four and a half years old for me, but
it still remains true.
It absolutely does, and it's one of those things that as long as we can, we're finding new and different ways. So I mean, you're mentioning Moore's law is changing, but okay, so let's distribute the load across multiple servers. Okay, let's also maybe some of these processes don't need to be on there, so we can use serverless architecture and use the processes that way, or we can use GPUs to offload some of those.
That's right. So there's a lot of special purpose computing that's coming into the picture now, and if that means that you now have more options, more in your palette to build from. But again, it increases complexity. There's always a trade-off here. It's not so easy as it once was. I remember the stack of lamp stack in the old days. It was easy to sort of keep it all in your head, and now
or all on one server.
Yeah, all on one machine. That's how people build a lot of apps the first go round. But that's a lot different today. The sophistication of the layers of the stack, every single one of them is a lot more complex. And then you throw in all these other things. You really got a matrix of things that you have to track.
And across multiple clouds.
I think this end of Moore's law concept is really being seen on the open sourcing of hardware side of things. You're seeing how people are looking at what they've been spending and using brand name stuff and saying, if we're going to continue to get a cost savings, we're going to have to start doing this a different way. And you're seeing big groups of large companies get together and say, how can we open source this technology? How can we build unique and purpose-built and continually push down some of our costs to get exactly what we need? And so there's that additional fallout in the cloud world of
Facebook did that a few years ago. Facebook with Open Compute, they reached out to me via Facebook, by the way. They sent me a note.
I would expect nothing
Facebook,
less.
Said, do you want to get involved in this open source hardware thing? And that created Open Compute, which today we use.
Parallel.
Some very cool technology. And then also IBM with Open Power, that's another area where they're innovating around their processor architecture, opening it up, allowing people to drive innovation beyond just a product. It's something that you can sort of hack on and create something that's really unique for your company.
That's great. Well, and this kind of dovetails into one of the other things that I think is really exciting, which is machine learning, right? And that's one of the things that, you're mentioning creative ways of cloud companies, changing things up. And, we saw Amazon at reInvent launch their machine learning platform and things like that. So, there are more ways that you can approach this idea and use machine learning to improve a lot of the processes along the way.
Yeah, machine learning is an exciting area. It's an emerging technology set. It's under the umbrella of artificial intelligence. When you hear AI and you hear machine learning, they're part of the same sort of academic research area when you think back to where it all started. But what's happening is that companies today are trying to take advantage of some of these machine learning capabilities to make decisions, to drive new innovation in their products. They're trying to use the data that they have collected over, many, months or years. They've got tons of data. How do we make use of that data? How do we find sort of meaningful outcomes or meaningful, pieces of wisdom out of that data? And computers are more and more likely to, going forward, to be able to do that better than we are in some cases. Instead of having to write an algorithm to look for a very specific thing, with machine learning, you can allow the computer to sort of learn as it goes. You give it a little bit of a clue here and there, but ultimately a computer can start to recognize patterns and find things in some cases that it would be very difficult for a human to come up with. And I think that's where you're seeing a lot of innovation going on. If you look at CES this week, the show that's going on there, they're showing off self-driving cars or talking about relationships with I saw today Audi and NVIDIA are working together to get self-driving cars on the road by 2020. And they're just one of many companies that's doing this. Tesla's been using this same technology for a while. But machine learning is what allows the car to understand the world and see, sort of this computer vision and machine learning are the ways that they're understanding, okay, that is something I need to avoid. That's something that's normal. This is how I find my way down the road.
Well, there's that great video that was released, I don't know, a week or two ago, where the Tesla stops automatically because it noticed that there was about to be a wreck. A couple of cars in front of it.
Awesome.
And that's great. And that's the thing that we as humans can do with fairly decent frequency, provided that we're always looking
paying attention,
right?
Yeah.
And so that's, even if you put your phone in the trunk and have nobody else in the car to talk to and you've got the radio off, like you can blink, you can sneeze, you can get distracted by a billboard or something like that. The equipment, the sensors on the car are looking where they're supposed to be looking.
And they're 360.
Right.
They're not just looking forward. They're looking on the side and the back and every which way. And they're going to tell you, they're going to tell the machine learning machines that are embedded in the trunk. This is why NVIDIA is such a cool company. They're the ones that are really putting embedding the gear right into the car, because you can't do this in the cloud. You have to do this locally. You have to
can't deal with latency.
You can't do latency when you're driving down the road. This is the one area where the cloud doesn't actually solve the problem, right?
But they're also sending that information back to the cloud to reprocess it
and to get better and to get better as a network.
Yes.
And when Tesla talks about their fleet, basically their fleet is every car, every Tesla that any owner drives, and they're basically collecting data about the road, the conditions, how these cars are performing in the field, and all of that is shaping the machine learning algorithms and training these things to be better over time.
And that's a thing that doesn't have to be instantaneous, no latency. That's a thing that can be shipped back when it's charging, you know, when it's connected to your home Wi-Fi, whatever.
The reason I put it on the predictions is because it's now available to almost anyone. If you want to go try it out, you can do it in Google's cloud. You can do it in Amazon's cloud. Microsoft's got some pretty capable, machine learning technologies. IBM has their technology called Watson. That's a lot of machine learning and AI built into that. And ultimately, this is now in the hands of developers who want to take advantage of it. It is a bit of a leap from what we're all used to, because you got to learn some new technologies and some new sometimes you got to think like a mathematician or a statistician, right? But ultimately, it is available now. It's starting to be really easy to access. In some cases, as simple as writing a little piece of code, and now you have the ability to recognize speech or recognize images. Image recognition is one of the most common forms of AI and machine learning that we see today.
What's interesting is you mentioned Facebook earlier. So my buddy and I were talking the other day, and he mentioned that he had a problem with his internet connection at home. And because of that, Facebook was degrading and not showing any of the images, but the metadata was there. And it was saying this image might contain 3 people, 2 of which are smiling.
There is a Chrome plugin that you can get that will expose exactly what tags have been associated with your Facebook images, and it'll tell you there's 2 bald guys and a guy with a hat and a couple of microphones. That it's almost that good. I mean, beaches or ballparks or cars or kids or dogs, all of that stuff is recognized, and it's based again on machine learning, where the algorithm has seen enough of these over time. It's been trained to say, that's a dog, that's not a dog. And from then on, it knows how to recognize an animal in the picture.
Well, Google Photos has been doing that for a few years. And that's the one that I use to save all my photos. And the search on that is just fantastic.
Amazon's got that too now in their photo library.
And so, you say, hey, do I have any photos around California? And even if I don't have the geolocation on it, it'll say, oh, hey, well, I recognize that building from San Francisco. So this is probably one from there. And oh, by the way, these were all taken at the same time. So those are probably a part of it.
Really cool stuff. And I think you're going to see that embedded in more and more applications. It's going to be in cameras that are recognizing people as they're walking through business, the front door of a business. They're going to be able to say, look, I recognize that person. He looks like so-and-so, or I know that person has a certain demographic. He's 35 years old and male, and it's going to really shape the way we build applications, the way we interact with objects and devices, and the way things start to do autonomous things that they've never been able to do before. Robotics or self-driving cars or devices that sort of think ahead. We were chatting right before this, we were talking about refrigerators that have potential to tell you when something is taken out of the fridge and not replaced. And I suggested maybe this thing could tell me what kind of a recipe I could make tonight. And I don't think that's that far off. It'll be able to look in the fridge and tell you, you've got enough of these, ingredients to make recipe X or Y or Z.
And you might want to use the milk because it's about to expire or something like that.
I mean, that's very real and very
absolutely
on the near-term horizon for us all.
Well, the thing that really stood out to me about machine learning is it's the logical continuation of a couple of the predictions from last year. You mentioned big data being a huge
key differentiator for companies.
Well, last year that was kind of what we expect to see. You called that out, and with all of that data, machine learning is really useful. But the other thing you mentioned was a lack of talent. There's just so much new technology. Data scientists get paid ridiculous amounts of money to parse through all that data. But with machine learning, you're able to take what you have to pay somebody a lot of money to go and dig out for you and basically just stick a machine on a problem and say, go solve that. And it can go and get that done and bring you back something usable.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting to see. Some of these snowball effects of a year or two ago, this is what's happening. It's going to be interesting to see which of the predictions you're making this year impact this trickle-down effect and this domino effect of what's going to happen.
What are we going to be talking about in 2018, 2019? Yeah.
Because
we may all be replaced
happen.
with robots.
Very, very intelligent machines.
As long as two of the robots are bald and one of them's wearing a hat. So
I can part with my hat if it's a better show.
Can you part with your hair? That's the big question.
Mechanically, yes.
Okay, so we've gone through a bunch of them there. Let's go ahead and jump to Google Cloud. That was one of the other ones.
Yeah, this is a good one. I put it on the list because last year at the beginning of the year, a lot of people looked at Google's cloud and said, it's there. It's doing okay, but it's not really setting the world on fire. But in 2016. Google made a lot of investments. They brought on a new leader for their cloud division, Diane Green. She was a former CEO of VMware, knows how the enterprise market works, knows how to sell to enterprise buyers, knows what they need, really has a handle on that world. And she's now driving a lot of new, she's driving the company. So she's driving a lot of new ventures or developments within the cloud. They are making a lot more noise. People are starting to pay attention. You're seeing more companies moving over to Google Cloud. That could be behind the scenes negotiations, but it also could just be that they've got a pretty good product. And so my prediction is that I think 2017 is the year that the Google Cloud becomes a cloud that you can't ignore. You're going to start to not just put Amazon and Microsoft on your short list and say, that's all I really need to pay attention to. You're going to put Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and possibly other cloud technologies on there as well. Because again, back to that, array of services, you're not going to want to miss out on some of the capabilities. They're very good at marketing. They're built on search and marketing, and their cloud has a lot of capabilities. Machine learning is something that Google really helped pioneer a lot of these technologies that we're talking about, and they're going to be exposed in their cloud. So I just put them on my predictions because I feel like this year is the year to really pay attention to Google. Nothing more than that. It's not. I don't have specific predictions, but I think everybody ought to really take note. And if you're a technologist, get your hands dirty. Go learn it. See if it's something that maybe has a role within your application.
The work they've done on Kubernetes and the ability to build things that are so fault tolerant and robust that heal themselves pretty natively is really incredible. And we always talk, week in and week out about stability and being able to have whatever it is that you do available all the time. Not customers more than anything else just want to be available. They want uptime.
Performance and uptime, right? Reliability.
Yeah, all sorts of different cloud providers have different ways of approaching that. There's all sorts of tools available and all sorts of technologies being developed all the time. But Kubernetes has done so in a really specific way with containers that allows for real granularity. And those sorts of efficiencies that give you granular control with containers and incredible stability and self-healing are really, really compelling. And I think that
Kubernetes is a big part of this as well. The mind share around that technology is just amazing. It's grown like crazy. Everybody's paying attention to it. It's iterating very rapidly, obviously, because they're pulling some of the very best technology out from behind the wall at Google and putting it out on sort of on display in the form of open source and products that they're launching. So I do think combined with just their business focus on the cloud, their technology is really amazing, and those two things are going to be a great year for Google, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's see. The last thing on your list of predictions is one thing that I know I'm personally excited about: the Internet of Things in our home.
Yeah. Well, this again really dovetails into a lot of things we've talked about.
Right.
The most visible, the most visible thing that we can see today in this area is just really the Amazon Echo. The Amazon Echo, maybe the Google Home. Some of these devices that are making our way into our coffee table, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that. I think you're going to see a lot more audio interfaces where you're talking to your devices, you're asking questions.
It makes sense.
It does make sense. It simplifies. There's a lot of things in the home that you shouldn't have to pick up a keyboard or a remote to take care of. And I think this is really, really where we're going to see a lot of innovation. And it's going very fast. I bet you many people got an Echo for Christmas, and it's sitting on the coffee table right now. Some your kids are probably asking it to tell it jokes, and I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. The integration with the rest of your IoT, your light switches, your garage door, your alarm system, all of that stuff. The integrations are going to be the rich nature of where this goes next, and I think
they've made that really accessible.
Yep. Yeah,
that's one of the things I think's differentiated the Alexa platform, no matter what device you're using it on, from the others, is that it's open and people are building all sorts of tools. You can teach your Echo skills that really are tailored to what you want to do, and you can build skills on top of it very simply.
Someone this week wrote a blog that really compared Alexa to an operating system, and they said that really this is the operating system for the home. We've had a data center operating system, we have a server operating system, we don't have one for the home, and Alexa is starting to look like an operating system. It has interfaces, it has sort of services that are exposed, and you can integrate with them, and I think that's probably right. I think Amazon probably sees this as a foundational technology, but they're not alone. Google's working on it. Apple is certainly working on it. Competitors are out there, and they're all trying to get into your home or into your office, wherever they might be. So pay attention.
It's really interesting. We picked up a Google Home this holiday season. I know, Drew, you mentioned you've got a Dot, I think, and they're great. They're neat little devices. Amazon has a 1.5, 2 year head start. So they've got a lot larger ecosystem, but I'm already enjoying the Google ecosystem. And I think that Google is going to be able to allow a lot of services to connect and to build some really cool things. And
that's the exciting part. And all of this stuff is growing so fast, and companies are trying to take advantage of this new technology that all relies on cloud. A lot of this stuff that we talked about today, you can't do without cloud. And you can't do cloud without expertise to use it. And that's again where Rackspace is focused. So a lot of my predictions come back to some of the things that we're doing behind the scenes here to enable companies to jump in with both feet and do these kind of integrations and build these kind of services, and do it without having to go and hire every single person that you'd absolutely need. You can do it with a shoestring budget nowadays.
And you got to hire them, and then you got to keep them, and both of those things are difficult propositions.
It is, and it goes back to last year's prediction of a shortage of talent. And, the data stuff. I think that your 2016 predictions were pretty spot on, and they've really fallen into this year. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you started. Last year was kind of broad buckets, and you decided to be more granular with this one.
Yeah.
And as things get more and more complex and more interesting, I'm really you're going to have a list that's too long to
It's getting
publish
harder,
next year.
guys. This is getting harder and harder. That crystal ball is like little crystal marble sometimes. I have to look really hard to find the predictions, because some of these things are obvious. I mean, we're talking about things that are trends, that are multi-year trends, so it's hard to sometimes put a pinpoint on this. But again, it's exciting for me, really as a technologist and as a leader here at the company, to think about how we shape our product offerings in response to some of the things that the customers are looking for, and our rackers are excited about as well.
Yeah, having a culture that's so interested in learning new things, I think. You put a few really good markers out there. Absolutely. Of places where people who want to learn the next thing and want to get their feet wet on some specific new technology, or where they think the industry is going. You've really highlighted a few really solid places.
Well, the truth is, a lot of these predictions came from rackers. I talk to rackers every day, and they tell me what they're working on, and they tell me what they're excited about, and I just sort of distill it into this once a year blog post. So it's not just me coming up with this stuff. You guys, out in the trenches, really working with customers every day. Those rackers are the ones that really are working on the future, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
It's a fun ride to be on.
Absolutely.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to observing these as the year progresses, participating in them, building some of them, and helping our customers do great things. And we'll tentatively pencil you in for January of 2018 to go back through those.
Excited to be here
and go through the next year's predictions.
Sure,
that's good. Well, I guess on that note, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And thank you for coming out and being on the show again and sharing these predictions. And if you haven't read them yet, you can go to the Rackspace blog and check them out. They are all available there as well. In fact, I think going back to 14 or 13 or so.
Yeah, you can
as well.
find them.
So
Just search Rackspace blog
They're
predictions
there, yeah.
and you'll find it.
they're all there. So, and I think you can see a nice story unfolding of,
Mhm.
of how technology is moving. So it's all there. So on that note, I guess we'll go ahead and say goodbye. And I guess we will see everybody next week. Take it easy, everybody.
Thanks.